Hello, my name's Chris Gorse. I'm the director of the Leeds Sustainability Institute. I'm here with Anne Stafford and David Glue. They're both doctors and work with us in the institute. Currently, we're getting a lot of requests around energy and energy security and why energy production matters. First of all, if we can have some insight into some of the things that you've been involved with, Anne, and how they might link into energy and energy efficiency.
Okay, well, I'm interested mainly in renewable energy technologies, all kinds of renewable energy technologies, from production of electricity, so PV, and also production of renewable heat, particularly heat pumps, solar thermal technologies, and other things as well. But I'm interested particularly in how these technologies perform in the real world, not how they perform in the lab in the way that manufacturers are likely to test them, but how they perform in reality in real buildings. So that also involves not only looking at the technologies themselves, but looking at the buildings that they're in, looking at the people who are using them, and looking at aspects like controls, which are very important. Essentially, it's taking a holistic view of these technologies in situ.
And Dave, what are you involved in?
Well, really, the same sort of ethos that Anne has when looking at renewable technologies. The reason we get the requests about energy and interest in energy is that, well, we've already been looking at energy efficiency in the housing stock and working out when you have a design that's supposed to achieve a certain thermal performance, again, in reality, it perhaps doesn't do that. And so really it's a case of the work that we've been doing is researching in buildings that exact phenomena, the performance gap, why you have a designed product that doesn't necessarily achieve what it's supposed to.
Okay. So I'm getting a lot of inquiries about energy, and we're getting them as a centre off our reputation to investigate buildings and look at their interface with energy. But just going back to a step, why does production matter? Why does energy production matter? Why has it become so important at the moment?
Well, I think what the interest that we get in where people see wasted energy is huge. And there's a certain amount that we can do in terms of making sure that the waste is minimised. But you can only get to a certain point. We all still need to use energy every day. We can be as efficient as possible, and that's where we all strive to be. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the energy has to come from somewhere. And so it's a logical next step for us to go from looking at reducing energy waste to looking at ways of making sure that we can produce energy in a sustainable way. And that's hopefully what we're going to be able to move into, the sort of work that Anne's doing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And you're doing you're now working in Scotland.
I'm working in Scotland, yes, which is it is very interesting to look at, certainly micro renewables and these kind of technologies, to look at some of the similarities and some of the differences. We certainly see different energy policy in Scotland. We see different natural resources that can be used as renewable resources. We see different attitudes sometimes to different technologies for various reasons, but we have similarities as well. So I'm thinking, for example, about fuel poverty, which is a big issue both in Leeds and in Scotland, and the general acceptability of renewable energy technologies and public confidence in how they can be used and what benefits they can give.
Some of the broader issues. So yesterday we were at a conference, and there was somebody from Sheffield, and what were they doing there? Because they were talking to you.
Well, I mean, it's a great case in point. They had a really exciting project that was a district heating system, and which is quite a popular way of providing heat to homes in continental Europe, and we do it less here, partly because of the way that our power stations are quite remote from urban settlements. But in Sheffield they have, as in with other cities in the UK, they have some form of infrastructure in place where they can provide heat direct to people's homes, but actually, which is a great idea in theory, but actually when it comes to the implementation, there hasn't necessarily been full thought about how it was going to be delivered. And so simple things like the controls that people have in the homes, they either turn the heating on or the heating off. And we know that there's a real interface there between user behaviour and delivering energy.
We have done a lot of work recently on heat pumps and found very much the same thing, that controls and the way people are able to use these things can make an enormous difference. Yeah.
So do we think this is unusual? So what you're suggesting is that we've got a lot of movement in terms of what we're trying to do with the energy shop, but we've not got necessarily a lot of knowledge on how to control it or how to interface it. Is that unusual to this situation, or do you think it's across the country?
It's not just how to control the technology. It's not just the interface with the technology. It's the interface at the person end as well. It's what kind of controls do people want? What kind of controls do they feel comfortable with and able to use, and can give them the parameters that they want?
And this is really where some of the work that we've already been doing on energy efficiency and occupant influence on energy consumption can help us in looking at the energy production side and how people interact. We have expertise within the university already looking at how occupants feel about energy in the house and how they use energy. And so where there's going to be energy production as well, the same issues are going to be coming up.
So we're always told there's a fabric first approach, but you're suggesting obviously that the occupants, or both of you suggesting the occupants are much more important, or as important in
not necessarily more important. The fabric is definitely an issue, and it will have an enormous effect on how technologies work. But very often when you get to the stage of installing technologies, then the fabric's already a given. So we need to understand the fabric. It will help us to choose the best technology and the best way of installing it to get the best from it. But if we take that as a given, then the things that we have to work with are around areas of control and patterns of use.
In terms of the inquiries we're getting now, it's obviously we're being asked to be involved in big data sets in supplying information about the building stock and how it's responding. We're also being asked by people who smart meters and technologies and of how to get the best out of them. How do we start to roll this out? How would we respond to some of these questions? Because clearly we have a lot of knowledge, but clearly there's a lot to learn, and obviously some.
Well, that's right, and hopefully we can act as a way of transferring some of the knowledge to the people who are actually making the physical equipment, like the smart meters, like the hubs in people's homes and the interactive displays or whatever they will have. They may be experts in designing the equipment and making sure the kit all works, but is it really going to be designed in a way that can maximise interaction with the occupant? And so some of the information that we can provide to them and work with them is hopefully going to make them design their intelligent systems more intelligently.
And I think as well, this is something that we say in all areas of our work, but very important to say once again, monitor, monitor, monitor. Real data. It has to be about real data, not about ideal data, not about what we think we can achieve, but what we are achieving.
There's also another issue there, is the way we collect the data and how much information is contained with it. And we've got a number of systems that we see being used to collect energy data, smart data. And I think you've mentioned that we sometimes have problems in this. What are the issues there that we will have to consider when trying to collect data on a big scale across the country?
Very fundamental questions at this stage. What do we need to collect? How are we going to use it? How are we going to analyse the data? What are we going to use it for? Why do we need it? Why do we need this kind of data and not this kind of data? Really that fundamental at this stage, because there's always a temptation just to collect data because you can. And if nothing's done with that data, it never gets turned into information.
I think obviously energy security is high on the country's agenda. We can see changes in the way that we get energy supplied to the grid and micro renewables. there are going to be a lot of issues that we're going to have to deal with, and I can see that we're going to get a lot more interest in the areas that you're leading in terms of energy and the energy centre that we're developing.
That's right. I mean, we are going to be a small piece in a big jigsaw, really, and all of the knowledge that we're accruing over time is really fundamentally to address those bigger issues of fuel poverty, energy security, and what we can provide is hopefully a way of making existing technologies more efficient, not necessarily by altering the technical bits of kit that are the components of the technology, but the way in which they're being installed and the way in which they're being used. We can really make a contribution towards reducing those sorts of big problems that society is facing.
Thank you. Thanks.